See, for some of us, I think we need to be reminded, God can do more than you can do. God can do more than you can do. God can do more than you can do in your family. God can do more than you can in your marriage. God can do more than you can with your kids. God can do more than you can do in your neighborhood. God can do more than you can do in your job. And see, for some of you today, what God wants you to do is, you've been fighting this battle, you've been facing this situation on your own, and today is the day you look up and say, God, I acknowledge it. You can do more than I can do. Here it is. You take it.
Beginning of this chapter in the history of Southside Church probably happened at Camp Stillwood back in 2006. This was way before Corinne and I came on staff, and we were on the leadership team, and there was a meeting. And one of the people at the meeting was Phil Adams. And I just remember Phil Adams saying, guys, I think we need a building. Now keep in mind, by the way, that at that time, Phil Adams was basically the setup team and the takedown team and the sound team all by himself. So he says, I really think that we need a building, that we can grow and that we can really impact this city with a building. And there was like this sense of silence, and then all these opposing voices came against him. And at that moment, I remember supporting Phil's idea, never having a clue that one day I would be the lead pastor at Southside Church. But that seed stayed with me.
So I really felt that the Lord was leading us to move towards a building. And I made mention of that in our leadership meeting. That was discussed and pretty much left at that point. Not a lot of action was put in place or an action plan put in place. But I did feel that God was saying that it was the time to begin to pursue it and to begin to take steps towards moving into a permanent home for Southside Church.
Now fast forward to 2014, and I'm the lead pastor of the church. And I remember Corinne and I looking around, and we were growing like crazy, and our impact was increasing week by week. And that moment from Camp Stillwood in 2006 came back to me. And I realized, man, we gotta build a building. We gotta put our foot down in the city. We gotta make a statement that says, we're not just here to make an impact for this generation, but for generations to come. We weren't yet ready to buy land and build a building, but we knew we needed to start moving towards it. So we launched the Bold campaign. And the Bold campaign is hilarious because I remember like 3 weeks in, I'm sitting in my office and I'm trying to think to myself, like if I had to boil down the message of the Bold campaign, what would it be? And here it was. We need to build something, somewhere, sometime. And I'm wondering, is anyone even gonna respond?
I believe by taking our next step to getting a full-time facility, we'll be putting a stake in the ground in this city. And here's what we're saying. That this gift that God has given us, this mission, this ability that we have to reach out to the so-called unreachable, it's not just for our generation. It's for your kids. It's for their kids. It's for their children. That for generations to come, that the rebels and the write-offs and the black sheep and the people burnt out on religion can come somewhere and find out that they're not made right with God by rules and regulations, but through a relationship with the Son of God who loves them so much that he died for them.
So a staff of 12 families, we all came together to pledge what we were going to give over and above our regular giving to this campaign over 2 years. So our staff is young and old, families, single people, none of us overly wealthy by any means. We were just a group of ordinary world changers. And that night, we pledged to give $210,000 over 2 years. And right then, I knew that our vision was aligned with God's heart. It wasn't just something that we wanted. At that moment, I knew it was something that God wanted. Because I knew that if our staff was this bought in, everyone else who called Southside Church home would be too. And so we walked into the Bold Commitment Sunday with incredible expectation.
Courage is never the absence of fear. It's the ability to banish it. The willingness to banish it. Being bold doesn't mean you never have doubts. But being bold means that you get back up, you take your next step, and you banish the doubts that are trying to hold you back.
$1.5 million. And that was pledged by 203 families. Man, we could not believe it, because our goal for Bold was actually $1 million. And so to have $500,000 pledged over our initial goal really was a sign that God was up to something. We knew God had land in mind for us. Now we just had to go and find it. And in 2018, we started building a relationship with the Hull family. And in June of 2019, we purchased the land in partnership with the Hulls and Chackton First Nation, where our facility now exists.
Once, we'd had the presentations from Dave and his team, and we had our family sessions to discuss it and look at, whether this was, first of all, something that we should even entertain and move forward with, and kind of the description of the buildings and how it was going to be operated, and the focus on family life and the importance of, a lot of things that were not necessarily just for religion, but basically a way of life. And I thought that was really good, and my family, along with me, were very supportive of that. They believed in that approach. I was, talking to the chief as well, and I said, this is a very, in my opinion, a different organization.
Okay, so now the vision started to sharpen. We had a piece of land, and we were beginning the process of building the first full-time home in the history of Southside Church. But we were asking ourselves, what is this process gonna look like? See, because I think there's a temptation when you're building the first facility in the history of your church to make the facility the point. And we wanted to establish right from the very beginning that this building, it's beautiful, but it's not the point. And so we came up with a goal, which was called the More Expanded Vision, that over the course of 2 years, it wasn't just about building a building. We wanted to bring more help, more hope, and more home to our city and to our world. But what we didn't know when we set that goal of $6 million is that God was already beginning to speak into the hearts and lives of Southsider after Southsider after Southsider after Southsider. God had a different idea.
I just hope that all of you know the spiritual significance in what happened today. You unclench your fists today. And he's been trying to feel your hands, but he hasn't been able to because he can't feel clenched fists. So what's happened here is amazing as a family, as a church, and what God wants to do in our city, but it's also amazing for what's going to happen in each and every one of your lives. Like we call this campaign More, like he wants to give more of himself to each and every one of us. And that's what happened here today.
After our church pledged $6.5 million, this enabled us to start construction on our first ever facility. I'll actually never forget hundreds of us coming together and walking the few blocks from Sardis Secondary, where we had held church for 23 years, to our future home to break ground for the first time. So we were back on track. And almost a year later, at our 1 year more anniversary, we had new Southsiders join into the vision and elevate our commitment from $6.5 million to $6.8 million. And we were continuing to grow, continuing to take steps forward. And then 3 weeks later, COVID hit. And the world stopped in its tracks.
China has identified the cause of the mysterious new virus. Coronavirus.
There are fears a rapidly spreading virus has reached Australia.
This is a rapidly emerging situation where there is not a cause for alarm.
The first US case has been detected.
There's confirmation the coronavirus has reached Australia.
China is urging its citizens not to travel abroad as it struggles to contain the virus.
Foreign nationals coming from China are now banned from entering the country.
So when COVID first hit, I actually remember not being that worried. I just kind of assumed that it would be a couple week-long thing. And if I'm completely honest, our church staff and our church in general were very resilient, were very resourceful, and I figured we would just roll with the punches and everything would be okay. And then the weeks turned into months, and the months turned into a year or more. And I remember looking back now, there were times when I was really, really worried. I didn't know what was gonna happen next, but now I can just see so clearly the faithfulness of God and the faithfulness of our church. our church just stepped up to the plate over and over and over again, just asking how they could help, how they could be a part of what God was doing in and through us.
But what we began to notice week after week and month after month is God had a plan in all of it. One of the first things that God showed us is that we weren't going to focus on what we can't do, but instead we were just going to keep asking ourselves, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? And what we found is when it comes to the people of Southside Church, we can do a lot. And the people of this church, the people of this family, of this mission, kept believing, kept sacrificing, kept praying, kept giving, kept serving, kept asking themselves, what can we do? In a world that desperately needs help, hope, and home, what can we do?
And on May 2nd, 2021, we announced the final total amount of funds that had come in for our expanded vision called More. $11.3 million. We didn't just meet our goal. God moved and we nearly doubled it. And here we are, poised and ready to be the church, the light that God has called us to be. And the craziest part is that this is only the beginning. Even after all we've seen thus far, we have never been more confident the best is yet to come.